It's a peaceful morning. You've just woken up, the sunlight is spilling into the kitchen, and you're preparing the breakfast you've had for years. It's simple, familiar, and you've always believed it's a healthy way to start the day. But here's the uncomfortable truth. One of the foods sitting on your plate this morning could be silently raising your stroke risk, and you might have no idea it's happening. Picture this. You take your first bite, savoring the flavor, but deep inside your body, subtle yet dangerous changes begin almost instantly. The sodium and chemical preservatives in this food start pushing your blood pressure upward, making the walls of your arteries a little stiffer. For a younger person, the body might compensate. But for someone over 60, these changes are more severe and harder to reverse. With time, this daily habit can set the stage for the perfect storm, a blood clot lodging in a narrowed vessel, cutting off blood flow to the brain and triggering a stroke. I've seen this scenario play out far too often in my clinic. One of my patients, Mrs. Harper, 68, was a retired school teacher who prided herself on her balanced diet. Every morning, she had the same breakfast: scrambled eggs, toast, and a few slices of this popular breakfast meat. She thought she was doing well, avoiding pastries and sugary cereals. But one morning, while reading the newspaper, she felt her right hand go numb. Within minutes, she was slurring her speech. She was rushed to the hospital, where we confirmed she'd had a mild stroke. After a full review of her lifestyle, it became clear. Her daily, healthy breakfast choice had been slowly raising her blood pressure and contributing to the build-up of plaque in her arteries for years. The problem is that this food doesn't taste salty enough to make you suspicious. It's been marketed as a quick source of protein, often labeled lean or low-fat, so it appears safe. But what the labels don't tell you is that the sodium levels are high enough to trigger harmful changes in circulation, especially in older adults. Sodium causes water retention in the blood vessels, which increases the volume of blood that the heart has to pump. This extra pressure, day after day, damages the delicate lining of your arteries, making it easier for cholesterol and calcium deposits to stick. And when blood vessels in the brain are affected, the consequences can be devastating. You might be thinking, but I've been eating this for years without a problem. And that's exactly why it's so dangerous. Stroke risk builds quietly over time. Arteries don't clog overnight. It's the slow, daily exposure to these harmful compounds that gradually changes the health of your circulatory system. By the time symptoms appear, the damage may already be advanced. Before we go further, I want to remind you, if you haven't subscribed yet, I highly recommend clicking that button and turning on the bell so you never miss another health tip made just for you. I share this information because I've seen firsthand how small daily choices, often ones you wouldn't think twice about, can add up to life-changing consequences. And the truth is, breakfast should be your body's best friend, not a hidden threat. That's why today, I'm going to walk you through 9 common breakfast foods that could be silently raising your stroke risk. We'll start with the one that's probably sitting in your refrigerator right now, the same one Mrs. Harper ate every morning, something that looks harmless but is far more dangerous than most seniors realize. The food we're talking about is a breakfast classic: processed meats like bacon, sausage, or even the so-called lean turkey slices that many seniors choose, thinking they're making a healthier swap. They seem harmless enough, quick to cook, satisfying, and packed with protein. But here's the problem. These meats are loaded with hidden sodium and nitrates that can silently wreak havoc on an aging circulatory system. Most seniors are aware that too much salt can raise blood pressure. What many don't realize is that the sodium in processed meats is far more concentrated than what you might add from a salt shaker. Just 2 small slices of turkey bacon can contain over 300 milligrams of sodium. Add that to the rest of your day's meals, and you can easily surpass the recommended limit without even touching the salt shaker. And for people over 60, this excess sodium is especially dangerous. As we age, our kidneys become less efficient at flushing out sodium, meaning the same amount that your body once handled easily can now cause fluid buildup, higher blood pressure, and extra strain on your heart and brain. But sodium isn't the only villain here. Processed meats also contain nitrates, preservatives used to keep them looking fresh and appetizing. Once inside the body, nitrates can convert into compounds called nitrosamines, which damage blood vessel linings and make it easier for fatty deposits to cling to artery walls. Over time, this narrowing reduces blood flow and dramatically increases the risk of a clot breaking loose and traveling to the brain. Let me tell you about Mr. Raymond, 66, a retired carpenter with a love for hearty breakfasts. He came to see me after experiencing dizzy spells and occasional blurred vision. His blood pressure was consistently high, despite medication. When I asked him to keep a food diary, I noticed he had sausage links almost every morning. He didn't think it was a big deal. After all, he'd been eating them for decades. But after just 3 weeks of cutting out processed meats and replacing them with fresh protein sources, his blood pressure dropped significantly. 6 months later, his dizziness had vanished, and his risk factors were much lower. The science behind this is clear. Processed meats cause a combination of high sodium load, blood vessel inflammation, and chemical exposure that accelerates vascular aging. And the damage isn't just limited to the heart. It extends to the delicate network of arteries feeding your brain. One small clot in the wrong place can mean a sudden, life-altering stroke. So if you're in the habit of starting your day with bacon, sausage, or processed turkey slices, I'm urging you to reconsider. There are far safer and still delicious ways to get your morning protein without bathing your arteries in salt and chemicals. In a moment, we'll talk about one seemingly healthy morning drink that's sabotaging your circulation in a completely different way. And chances are, you might be sipping it right now. The next breakfast danger is one that hides in plain sight. A drink many seniors swear by for its health benefits. It's fruity, sweet, refreshing, and often poured into a tall glass right alongside your morning meal. Yes, I'm talking about fruit juice, especially the kind labeled 100% natural or no added sugar. On the surface, it sounds like the perfect choice for starting your day with vitamins and antioxidants. But the reality is far more complicated. Here's what happens when you drink a glass of orange juice, apple juice, or even grape juice first thing in the morning. Your body gets a massive influx of natural sugars, mainly fructose and glucose, without any fiber to slow down absorption. This sends your blood sugar soaring in minutes. For seniors, whose insulin sensitivity is often reduced with age, that spike is more dramatic and more damaging. The excess sugar causes inflammation in your blood vessels, making them less flexible and more prone to injury. Over time, repeated sugar spikes stiffen the arteries, making it easier for plaque to form and harder for blood to flow smoothly to the brain. One of my patients, Mrs. Lawson, 72, is a perfect example. She was diligent about her health, walked every day, avoided fried foods, and even quit soda years ago. But she drank a large glass of orange juice every morning, believing it was helping her immune system. Over the years, she began experiencing headaches and mild memory lapses. Her blood tests showed prediabetes and elevated triglycerides, both of which are known to increase stroke risk. When she cut back to just a few ounces of juice and paired it with a breakfast rich in protein and healthy fats, her blood sugar stabilized, her triglycerides dropped, and her headaches became far less frequent. The science here is undeniable. While fruit in its whole form is incredibly healthy, thanks to its fiber content, juice strips away that fiber, leaving behind a concentrated sugar solution. This is why the glycemic load of juice can rival that of soda. And while occasional juice isn't inherently harmful, making it a daily habit, especially on an empty stomach, can accelerate vascular damage. For seniors, this means more than just an increased risk of diabetes. It means higher blood pressure, greater clot risk, and reduced brain perfusion, all of which contribute to stroke risk. You might be wondering, But what about fresh squeezed juice I make myself? The answer is that even fresh juice without additives still delivers the same sugar load without the protective fiber. Your body simply isn't designed to handle that much sugar in such a short time, especially first thing in the morning when your metabolism is primed for absorption. So what's the alternative? Whole fruits in moderation, paired with protein sources like yogurt, eggs, or nuts, can give you the vitamins and antioxidants you need without the dangerous sugar spike. A small piece of fruit eaten with breakfast is far gentler on your body than a full glass of juice. We've covered salty processed meats and sugar-packed juices, but the next item might be sitting on top of your toast right now. It's creamy, flavorful, and considered by many to be a harmless indulgence. The truth is, this spread can quietly accelerate plaque buildup in your arteries, bringing you one step closer to a stroke. Let's move on to something that often sits quietly on the breakfast table, looking completely harmless. A creamy spread that melts perfectly on toast or pancakes. I'm talking about butter and margarine, along with certain popular breakfast spreads that claim to be heart-friendly but are far from it. While these may seem like small additions to your meal, their impact on your arteries over time can be anything but small. Butter is high in saturated fat, which in excess can raise LDL cholesterol levels. This bad cholesterol plays a major role in forming plaques that narrow your arteries, limiting blood flow to your brain and heart. For seniors, whose arteries may already be less flexible due to aging, these plaques can build up more quickly and become more unstable, increasing the risk of a sudden clot breaking free and causing a stroke. But before you think margarine is a safer option, we need to talk about trans fats. Many margarines and so-called spreads used to contain partially hydrogenated oils, a source of artificial trans fats known to raise LDL cholesterol and lower protective HDL cholesterol. While regulations have reduced trans fats in many products, certain inexpensive brands and imported goods can still contain them in small amounts. And for older adults, even small amounts add up over time. Trans fats not only harm cholesterol balance, but also cause inflammation in blood vessels, creating the perfect environment for clots. Take the case of Mr. Dalton, a 70-year-old retired accountant. He had always preferred margarine over butter, believing it was the healthier choice. Every morning, he'd spread a thick layer over his toast, sometimes with a dollop of fruit jam. Over the years, his cholesterol slowly crept up, and his carotid artery scans began to show narrowing. He never connected this to his breakfast habit. But after switching to a healthier fat source, like avocado slices or a light drizzle of olive oil, his cholesterol levels improved, and follow-up scans showed stabilization in his artery health. There's also the problem of portion size. Most people underestimate how much spread they're actually using. A pat of butter might be 35 calories, but a generous swipe across 2 slices of toast can easily triple that amount. With more fat and calories comes more strain on the cardiovascular system, especially if the rest of your diet already contains animal fats from meats, dairy, and processed foods. If you love the creamy texture on your toast, there are safer options. Mashed avocado provides healthy monounsaturated fats that help maintain artery flexibility. Nut butters without added sugar or hydrogenated oils are another excellent choice, offering protein and healthy fats without the same artery clogging effect. Even a drizzle of extra virgin olive oil can give you richness while protecting your vascular health. So far, we've looked at the salty processed meats, the sugar-packed juices, and now the artery-coating spreads that can all raise stroke risk. But there's another seemingly innocent breakfast staple that many seniors trust for energy and nutrition. It's often fortified with vitamins, comes in colorful boxes, and has been a household favorite for decades. The problem is, this food can quietly inflame your blood vessels and interfere with healthy brain circulation. And it's likely sitting in your pantry right now. Now let's talk about processed breakfast cereals, the ones that promise energy, fiber, and a good dose of vitamins right on the front of the box. They may seem like the perfect quick meal. Pour into a bowl, add milk, and you're done. But for seniors, these cereals can be far more harmful than they appear, especially when eaten daily. The first issue is sugar. Even cereals marketed as healthy or whole grain can contain high amounts of added sugar, sometimes more than 10 grams per serving. And remember, most people pour more than the standard serving size listed on the box. This means your light breakfast could easily give you the same sugar hit as a candy bar, especially when you factor in sweetened milk or added fruit. That sugar spike causes the same blood vessel inflammation we discussed with fruit juice, leading to artery stiffness, plaque buildup, and increased clot risk. The second problem is the type of carbohydrates these cereals contain. Highly processed grains break down quickly into glucose, causing rapid rises in blood sugar. Without enough protein or healthy fat to slow digestion, this sudden surge puts stress on your vascular system. For seniors with reduced insulin sensitivity, this effect is magnified, raising the risk of both diabetes and stroke over time. And then there's the fortification trap. Many cereals are fortified with synthetic vitamins and minerals, which sounds beneficial, until you realize that the added nutrients don't erase the damage from the sugar and processed carbs. In fact, some fortified cereals contain excessive amounts of certain vitamins, like folic acid, which in high doses can mask vitamin B12 deficiency, a common problem in older adults that's linked to cognitive decline. I once treated a patient named Mrs. Grant, 74, who was a lifelong fan of bran flakes. She believed they were the healthiest choice, especially since they were fiber-rich and fortified. Yet she was experiencing frequent fatigue and mild dizziness. Her blood work revealed unstable blood sugar levels and early signs of vascular inflammation. When we replaced her morning cereal with a protein-rich breakfast, like Greek yogurt with berries and nuts, her energy stabilized, and her inflammatory markers began to drop within months. What's most concerning is how easy it is to underestimate the impact of cereal. It's fast, convenient, and has been marketed to us for decades as a wholesome choice. But for older adults, it can set off a cascade of metabolic and vascular changes that quietly erode brain health and circulation. If you love cereal, there are safer approaches. Choose varieties with no added sugar, made from whole, minimally processed grains, and always pair them with a protein source to slow sugar absorption. Better yet, replace cereal entirely a few times a week with eggs, oatmeal topped with nuts, or a smoothie blended with vegetables and protein powder. We've talked about hidden sodium, dangerous sugar spikes, and artery-clogging fats. But our next breakfast culprit is one you may love for its rich, savory flavor. Unfortunately, even the lean or reduced fat versions are packed with chemicals that can increase clot formation. And if you eat them regularly, they could be pushing your stroke risk higher than you realize. The next item on our list may be a personal favorite for those who crave a hearty, savory breakfast. Breakfast meats. This includes bacon, sausage links, ham, and even the healthier lean turkey or chicken sausage options that line the grocery store shelves. While these foods are often praised for being rich in protein, their hidden dangers go far beyond their calorie count. The first major problem is the sodium load. A single serving of breakfast sausage can contain 400 to 500 milligrams of sodium. Bacon isn't far behind, with about 300-400 milligrams per 2 slices. Considering the American Heart Association recommends seniors limit sodium to around 1,500 milligrams per day, just one portion of these meats can account for a third, or more, of your daily allowance. For older adults, excess sodium doesn't just raise blood pressure, it can cause the arteries to stiffen and lose their ability to regulate blood flow to the brain, dramatically increasing the risk of a stroke. Then there's the preservative problem. Many breakfast meats are treated with nitrates and nitrites to preserve color, flavor, and shelf life. Once consumed, these compounds can transform into nitrosamines, which damage the delicate lining of your blood vessels. Damaged vessel walls are more likely to develop plaque deposits, narrowing the arteries and making it easier for dangerous clots to form. Another hidden danger lies in the saturated fats. Even in lean breakfast meats, saturated fat content can be high enough to raise LDL cholesterol levels, further contributing to plaque buildup. Over time, this combination of high sodium, harmful preservatives, and saturated fat creates the perfect storm for vascular disease. Let me tell you about Mr. Alvarez, a 69-year-old retired firefighter. He prided himself on staying active and fit. Every morning, he cooked 2 eggs with 3 slices of turkey bacon, believing it was a healthier choice than pork bacon. But despite his exercise routine, his cholesterol levels were climbing, and a routine ultrasound showed narrowing in his carotid arteries, the main vessels supplying blood to the brain. When he eliminated processed breakfast meats and replaced them with fresh protein sources like grilled chicken breast or beans, his cholesterol dropped within 3 months, and his blood pressure became easier to control. It's important to understand that for seniors, vascular health can decline more quickly due to cumulative damage from decades of dietary habits. While a younger person's body might repair some of this vessel injury, older arteries often can't recover as effectively. This makes it critical to minimize exposure to foods that actively contribute to artery narrowing and clot formation. The good news? There are satisfying, heart-friendly alternatives. Freshly cooked poultry, fish, eggs, or plant-based proteins can provide the same fullness and flavor without the high sodium and preservatives. Even preparing a vegetable-rich omelette with beans or lentils can be a delicious, stroke-safe replacement for traditional breakfast meats. We've now covered multiple breakfast dangers, from processed meats to sugary drinks and artery-clogging spreads. But there's another morning ritual that may be quietly damaging your vascular health, something you might be sipping while watching this video. On its own, it can be harmless. But when you add a few extra ingredients, it becomes a potent recipe for vascular inflammation and increased stroke risk. Let's talk about coffee, the morning beverage that's practically a ritual for millions of people. On its own, coffee can actually have some health benefits. Studies have shown that moderate coffee consumption may improve alertness, mood, and even provide antioxidants that help protect cells. But the problem isn't usually the coffee itself. It's what we put in it. For many seniors, coffee isn't complete without a generous splash of flavored creamer, a couple spoonfuls of sugar, or even whipped cream for that coffee shop feel. Unfortunately, those additions can turn your cup of coffee into a hidden vascular hazard. Flavored creamers, whether powdered or liquid, are often made with hydrogenated oils, sources of trans fats that raise LDL cholesterol and lower HDL cholesterol. Even small amounts of trans fats can damage the lining of your arteries, making them more prone to plaque buildup and narrowing. And while manufacturers have reduced trans fats in many products, some creamers still contain trace amounts, which add up over time, especially if you drink coffee daily. Then there's the sugar. Adding just 2 teaspoons of sugar to 2 cups of coffee a day means you're consuming around 16 grams of added sugar. Over time, that constant sugar exposure contributes to chronic inflammation, insulin resistance, and stiffened arteries, creating a perfect environment for blood clots to form. For seniors, whose vascular systems are already more vulnerable, this increases stroke risk significantly. I remember a patient, Mrs. Daniels, 71, who considered herself very health conscious. She avoided fast food, exercised regularly, and always kept her weight in checks. But she couldn't start her morning without her special coffee, a large mug filled with coffee, 3 tablespoons of hazelnut creamer, and 2 teaspoons of sugar. When we looked at her lab results, her triglycerides were high, and her cholesterol profile showed elevated LDL. She was shocked to learn that her morning coffee habit was a major contributor. After switching to black coffee with a splash of unsweetened almond milk and a dash of cinnamon, her numbers improved within months. Artificial sweeteners, which some people use to avoid sugar, can also pose problems. Certain artificial sweeteners may disrupt gut bacteria, leading to metabolic changes that indirectly affect cardiovascular health. While they may not spike blood sugar like regular sugar, they aren't a free pass for unlimited use, especially for those already at risk for vascular disease. If you enjoy coffee, the safest way to drink it is black, or with a small amount of unsweetened plant-based milk. If you prefer sweetness, consider a light drizzle of honey or a sprinkle of cinnamon for flavor without the heavy sugar load. We've talked about what goes into your coffee cup, but now we need to address another common morning mistake, one that has nothing to do with food additives, fats, or sugar. It's a habit that many seniors overlook, yet it can thicken your blood, reduce circulation to the brain, and make a stroke more likely before your day even begins. This next stroke risk factor isn't about what you eat, it's about what you don't drink. I'm talking about dehydration, especially in the morning. Many seniors wake up, head straight for coffee or tea, and go hours before taking their first sip of plain water. It may not feel like a big deal, but skipping hydration early in the day can have serious consequences for your circulation and brain health. When you wake up, your body has already gone 6 to 8 hours without water. Overnight, you lose fluids through breathing and perspiration, even if you don't notice it. For older adults who often have a reduced sense of thirst, this fluid loss can be more pronounced because the body is less efficient at conserving water. The result is thicker, more viscous blood in the morning, and thicker blood flows more slowly, increasing the likelihood of clot formation, one of the main triggers for stroke. I recall a patient, Mr. Lawson, 73, who came to see me after experiencing sudden dizziness and blurred vision one morning. His blood pressure was normal, but his lab results showed signs of mild dehydration. He admitted he rarely drank water before noon, relying instead on 2 large cups of coffee to wake up. After making one simple change, drinking a glass of water before his coffee, his morning dizziness disappeared, and his energy improved significantly. There's also the fact that dehydration can cause blood pressure fluctuations. When your body doesn't have enough fluid, your blood volume decreases. This can cause your heart to pump harder to maintain circulation, sometimes resulting in spikes in blood pressure later in the day. For seniors with already fragile blood vessels, these fluctuations can cause small tears in the artery lining, making it easier for plaque to form, and dehydration's impact on the brain is no less concerning. Even mild fluid loss can impair cognitive function, reduce alertness, and affect coordination, factors that can contribute to falls or delayed reaction time in an emergency. Worse, dehydration combined with high sodium intake, like from processed breakfast foods, creates an ideal environment for clotting. The good news is that preventing morning dehydration is simple. Start your day with at least 8 to 12 ounces of plain water before you eat or drink anything else. If you find plain water unappealing, add a slice of lemon or cucumber for flavor. Herbal teas without caffeine can also help increase fluid intake without contributing to dehydration. We've covered salty, sugary, and fatty foods, as well as the dangers of dehydration. But there's another hidden threat that may be sabotaging your health every morning, one that has nothing to do with nutrients and everything to do with interactions. Certain breakfast foods can actually weaken or block the effectiveness of the medications you rely on to manage blood pressure, cholesterol, or heart rhythm. And if those medications aren't working properly, your stroke risk can rise sharply without you even knowing it. One of the most overlooked stroke risks at breakfast comes from hidden interactions between certain foods and your medications. For seniors who take daily prescriptions, whether for blood pressure, cholesterol, heart rhythm, or diabetes, what you eat in the morning can make a huge difference in how well those medications work. In some cases, the wrong food pairing can render your medicine far less effective. In others, it can amplify side effects to dangerous levels. A classic example is grapefruit. Grapefruit and grapefruit juice contain compounds called furanocoumarins, which interfere with enzymes in your liver that help break down many medications. When these enzymes are blocked, the levels of the drug in your bloodstream can rise higher than intended, increasing the risk of side effects such as dangerously low blood pressure, irregular heartbeat, or muscle damage. This interaction is well documented with certain statins, calcium channel blockers, and antiarrhythmic drugs, common prescriptions among seniors. Then there's the issue of high-fiber cereals and certain thyroid medications. While fiber is generally healthy, taking a high-fiber meal at the same time as your thyroid pill can reduce absorption, making the medication less effective. Similarly, calcium-rich foods like milk or yogurt can interfere with the absorption of some antibiotics or osteoporosis drugs if taken too close together. Even your morning cup of coffee can be a problem. It can reduce the absorption of thyroid medication and some supplements if consumed within certain 60 minutes of taking them. I remember a patient, Mrs. Clark, 75, who was frustrated that her cholesterol numbers weren't improving despite faithfully taking her statin. After a detailed review, we discovered she drank a glass of grapefruit juice with breakfast every morning. Once she eliminated it, her medication began working as expected, and her cholesterol improved noticeably within a few months. The tricky part is that many seniors aren't warned about these food-drug interactions, or they hear about them once, years ago, and forget. Meanwhile, the effect compounds over time. If your medication isn't working properly, your risk factors for stroke, like high blood pressure, high cholesterol, or irregular heartbeat, remain uncontrolled, sometimes without obvious symptoms until it's too late. The safest approach is to talk to your doctor or pharmacist about every prescription you take and the timing of your meals. In many cases, simply adjusting when you eat certain foods can prevent these interactions entirely. For example, taking your medication an hour before breakfast, or separating calcium-rich foods from certain pills by at least 2 hours can make a big difference in how well your medicine works. We've now gone through 8 of the most common breakfast mistakes that can silently raise stroke risk, each one damaging your vascular health in a different way. But before we wrap up, I want to give you something equally important: safe, delicious, and brain-protective breakfast alternatives you can enjoy without fear. In our final section, we'll talk about how to make your mornings both satisfying and stroke-safe. We've covered a lot of ground, from salty processed meats to sugary juices, artery-clogging spreads, deceptive cereals, and even hidden dangers in your morning coffee. We've looked at how dehydration and food-medication interactions can quietly set the stage for a stroke. And if there's one message I want you to take away from this entire discussion, it's this: as we age, our bodies respond differently to what we eat and drink. Foods that seemed harmless or even healthy 20 or 30 years ago can have an entirely different impact on a senior's heart, brain, and circulation. The key is not to be afraid of breakfast, but to approach it with awareness. You have the power to make choices that protect your brain and your arteries every single morning. And the good news is, these choices don't mean sacrificing flavor, variety, or enjoyment. Let's talk about some safe, brain-healthy breakfast alternatives you can start enjoying right now. Oatmeal with nuts and berries. Steel-cut or rolled oats topped with almonds, walnuts, and fresh berries provide fiber, healthy fats, and antioxidants without the sugar spikes of processed cereals. Vegetable omelette. Eggs cooked with spinach, mushrooms, and bell peppers give you protein and brain-protective phytonutrients. Greek yogurt with chia seeds, unsweetened. Greek yogurt offers protein and probiotics. Chia seeds add omega-3s and fiber for vascular health. Whole fruit, not juice. A small apple, pear, or handful of berries paired with protein prevents the blood sugar surge you'd get from juice. Avocado toast on whole grain bread. Avocado delivers monounsaturated fats that help keep arteries flexible, while whole grains provide sustained energy. Smoothie with leafy greens and protein. Blending spinach, kale, unsweetened almond milk, and a scoop of protein powder can be a refreshing, nutrient-dense alternative to sugary drinks. Along with choosing the right foods, timing matters. Try to drink a glass of water first thing in the morning to rehydrate before coffee or tea. If you take medications, be mindful of the timing of certain foods, especially grapefruit, high-fiber cereals, or calcium-rich dairy, to avoid interference. Remember, these changes are not about perfection. They're about progress. Even replacing 2 or 3 risky breakfast items with safer choices can lower your stroke risk and improve your overall vitality. I've seen patients turn their health around in a matter of months simply by making these small, consistent changes. So as you plan your mornings, think of your breakfast not just as fuel, but as a daily investment in your brain and heart health. The right foods can keep your blood flowing freely, your mind sharp, and your energy steady throughout the day. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a comment with 1. If not, feel free to comment with 0. Your feedback means a lot to us. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss another health tip made just for you. You have the power to protect your brain, one breakfast at a time.